U.S. has seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. Confirmation coming from President Trump just moments ago.
And this also comes as the president has ordered a huge military buildup in the region and has launched strikes for months now on alleged drug boats. We're joined now by the former Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall, and we're learning details obviously still at this point, but your initial reaction to learning of this seized oil tanker, what this means?
It seems to me to be an escalation of the level of pressure we're putting on Venezuela and on President Maduro. Quite frankly, I don't know where this is leading or what the overall intent is here. But this is a substantially bigger step to take than the ones we've taken before this.
To the point of trying to discern what the intent is, experts have pointed to energy as the linchpin of this nexus of countries that are adversaries of the United States in the Western Hemisphere: Cuba, Nicaragua, obviously Venezuela. I wonder whether you think it also lends credence to the idea that the administration is specifically going after Maduro in part for his energy.
I think it's pretty clear that the intent here is ultimately to take him out of power, one way or the other. I don't know how far we're prepared to go in that direction. The force that we have in the Caribbean is not large enough to support an invasion, but it could support strikes. It's got a lot of air power, naval power, a relatively small marine force. Some special operations capability. So we could be doing airstrikes, which have been implied for some time. We could be doing something in support of a coup. That's possible. We could be doing raids. We could be targeting drug facilities and so on. I don't know. It's not at all clear what the actual intent is here. It may be some hope that Maduro will just realize that the game is up and leave the country.
Okay, guys, welcome to the video. This is Justin Paul. So going over this video here, where it's breaking news that Trump has confirmed that the United States has seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. And again, I'm just like this former Air Force Secretary here. I'm not sure what the play is with this, but they seized the oil tanker, and they're of course trying to get the leader of Venezuela out of office. That's the goal of the administration, because they feel like this guy Maduro, they feel like he is really the head of being able to say giving the cartels the power to get those drugs out of the country and on into other countries and stuff like that. So he feels like that's the head of the snake pretty much, and it's gonna be interesting to see how all this plays out. We do have a substantial military presence in that region, and it's not for nothing, I can tell you that. And Trump is not the type of president that's gonna just blow smoke up your ass at all. If he says it's something that he's gonna do, you best damn believe it is something he's gonna do. So we'll see what becomes of this. Hopefully it's just not at the expense of spending a lot of money and resources and the time and lives of our service members. And hopefully, there's a well put together plan as far as trying to accomplish their goals. I have been in agreement with what they're doing as far as the strikes on drug boats, because you got to use some type of force as a deterrent to try to keep those drugs from reaching our shores. And so I'm for all that, but I'm not the biggest fan of war and stuff like that, and putting our troops in harm's way. Not the biggest fan of that, but I do understand and will agree when it's necessary in order to make sure that nothing kind of comes back on us as a country. So, and with us being one of the world's biggest superpowers, this is a lot of the tough tasks that we have to do with having that title, honestly. Because a lot of countries they don't necessarily have like the the power that we have military wise and technology and stuff like that. So, and a lot of them aren't being targeted as far as how we are targeted, as far as like bringing drugs and stuff like that into the country, and people just always wanting to come here and migrate here, and you know, we the United States. It just is what it is. So it's just something that I've come to realize as far as the type of position that we hold within the world as a country. So again, I don't know what the play is. None of us know what the play is, but like I said, hopefully there's a good plan in place or being put in place, and we execute it to a T, and we know exactly what we're doing as far as if we're going to do any of those things that this former Air Force Secretary was speaking on, coups and strikes and whatever we looking to do. We just got to make sure that we're very precise in what we're doing.
I think that may be wishful thinking, but that's a possibility.
Looking at previous U.S. involvement in the region or in situations like this, there are cautionary tales. What's on your mind as you're thinking about this?
There's a very long history of U.S. intervention in South America, which is not a very pretty story. I've seen some of that throughout my career, Panama at one time, Grenada. Again, I don't think the force we have in this case is large enough to do an attack and seize control. Venezuela is a big country with a pretty good-sized military. But that said, I don't know where President Trump is going with this. He declared a no-fly zone, essentially, or closed airspace, which we have no power to enforce. So what he intends with that? Again, there's a lot of mystery about this, and I think it would be very helpful if the president were a little clearer about what he's actually trying to do here.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are hoping that the administration would be more clear on exactly what happened with that second strike on these apparent survivors of an initial strike, suspected drug traffickers. Initially, the president and Secretary Hegseth made statements saying that they were open to footage of that second strike being released to the public. They have since hedged on that. You've obviously been on the other side of oversight as Air Force Secretary. What reasons would you see for this video not being released to the public?
I cannot conceive of any reason not to release the video, other than that they don't like what's on it and don't want people to see it. We've had various stories about this ever since it came out. It's been shown to some people on Capitol Hill, and we've got dramatically different interpretations of what those people saw. So let's all see it. I don't know of anything that could be classified that would prevent it being released, and if there was, that sort of thing could be removed somehow. We really need to see what happened so we can judge for ourselves what happened here. It's also really important, I think, to remember that it's not just these strikes on these two survivors. It's all of these strikes. They're all illegal. There is no war with the drug dealers. The president's unilaterally decided that he wants to have a war with them and start killing people. Congress declares war, not the president. So we really need to put this in context of all the operations that are going on here.
That's true. Even if I agree with keeping the drugs out of our country, it's a very barbaric way of doing it. I will admit to that. And as he was just saying, Congress declares war, it's not the president. A lot of times, people just don't really understand how the government is set up. President does have powers and this and the third, but Congress makes a lot of the decisions. Majority of the decisions are made in Congress, and the president just writes off on it, signs off on it, and stuff like that. More, it's just similar to like a president, kind of similar to the president of like a company. Then you have your board of directors who really sit in meetings and kind of decide this and that and the third, and shareholders and stuff like that. Like a lot of times, like the president is just really the face of stuff, and not necessarily in Congress sitting there and debating and having votes and stuff like that about what's going to go on and what to put in and out of these laws and what's going to get passed. So, he is right. This guy is right. I just wish they had a better way to deter drugs from coming in. But if the president feels like this is a good deterrent, we'll just have to see what becomes of this, man. A lot of people are not going to agree, but I read my comments, and a lot of people are just like, they're all for it. So, and I'm sure a lot of Americans, especially those who have lost family members to and loved ones to, you know, the type of drugs that are being brought over on them boats, I'm sure they would feel the same way. Of course, you got to have some type of compassion to those who, once you blow up a boat, if it's somebody that's surviving and trying to, somehow save themselves. You gotta have some type of compassion, but it's not stopping them from trying to bring that stuff into here. Trust me, these people have no compassion for your family members, your loved ones, your kids, whoever. Who those drugs start from one place, they get over here, they're tainted. Something bad happens to your family members. They're not gonna be sending you no type of condolences. They're looking for the next user to fatten their pockets with that money. I want to be very clear with that. You're a drug user and you're using some of their drugs and they know it's tainted, or whether it's tainted or not, you overdose, you lose somebody. You will never hear a condolence from the cartel or from whoever is sending those drugs over to the United States. So we gotta put a lot of stuff into perspective when we're talking about this type of stuff, so.
And try to hold the administration accountable for what it's doing. I can go on and on about this, but the effectiveness of this seems to be very little. The targets that we're attacking are taking cocaine that's bound for Europe to other parts of the Caribbean. They are not taking fentanyl into the United States. So the whole rationale for this all falls apart. We've captured some people, but we didn't keep them and interrogate them or treat them as prisoners of war. We sent them back to their home countries. It all falls apart when you start to look at the details behind what we're doing here.
There are two sources with direct knowledge who told CNN that Admiral Mitch Bradley told lawmakers last week he'd consulted with the uniformed lawyer on duty during the operation before he approved that secondary strike that killed survivors. The sources adding the JAG officer assessed it would be legal to move forward with the second strike. To give context to our viewers, though, they need to understand that as Secretary Hegseth came into the Pentagon, he essentially eviscerated the top JAGs, the top legal officers, and he changed the system. The entire sort of operation of that JAG Corps is very much under fire right now. So hearing that, learning that information, how do you see that considering the broader context?
I've heard about this. I'm very concerned about this. Every time we do a strike, where there's a chance to look at it carefully and decide what to do, judge advocate officers are providing an opinion on whether it's a legal strike or not. When Secretary Hegseth fired the 3 top lawyers for the military departments on basically his first act, I was very concerned. And what he has said, he said this in the Oval Office, is that he wants maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Those are his words. And you're seeing it play out in the killing of these people.
It's a major escalation between the United States and Venezuela, it seems. Donald Trump says U.S. forces have seized an oil tanker off the Venezuelan coast. CNN's Kevin Liptak joining me. What does this mean, Kevin?
Yeah, it's not precisely clear what the president's goals were in seizing this tanker. He didn't expand on that. In the Roosevelt Room where he's speaking just now, he said that it was the largest tanker ever seized and that there could be more action to come. But certainly it is an escalation on this pressure campaign that the Trump administration is mounting on Venezuela. The administration had been reluctant so far to target the country's oil industry, its oil sector. Most of those tankers are shipping oil to China. But clearly, the president touting this action as a major step forward as he increases the pressure on Nicolas Maduro. Now, the president has said as recently as this week that he could be launching airstrikes on that country. He hasn't said when that might happen. So far, the administration's strategy had been to go after those drug boats, those alleged drug boats in the Caribbean Sea, That's caused so much consternation in Congress, questioning the legal rationale there, questioning at least that one particular strike, that so-called double tax strike that some have said could amount to war crimes. And so we'll see what more the president has to say about this seizure of the tanker.
Yeah, we definitely need some clarity. I did get a lot of information here from this video. Um, because of course we don't know what the routes of those boats was going. A lot of us assumed that they were coming into America. Some could be going to Europe and stuff like that, as that former Air Force Secretary was saying, and trying to really figure out why we seized the oil tanker and stuff like that. Again, we need a lot of more transparency and clarity as far as like what are our goals there. I do agree with that. You know, I'm all for keeping drugs out of the United States, but we definitely want to make sure we're acting within our legal within our legal parameters, and not necessarily doing anything that's gonna put even more target on our back, because it's a lot of people that truly hate us out there, and we don't need a bigger target on our back than the big target that we already have. So we'll see what becomes of this, guys. And definitely, like I said, I'm gonna keep reacting to these type of videos and keep getting more information and differences of opinions and stuff like that, and just trying to keep doing as much research as I can on really what's going on, and what's our goal here, what's our end goal. Again, if you like my content, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. This is Justin Paul. Peace.